We are back, and we are joined by our friends, Brandon Sutton and Matt Binder. Opening up the phone lines, by the way, 646-257-3920 is the number. Binder, what's happening on your shows?
Sure. So this week on Doomed, I talked about covered the Doge boys and Elon Musk's ransacking of the government. Tune in at youtube.com/Matt Binder. Also, at my newsletter, which has unofficially launched at disruptionist.com, I broke the story of how a bunch of crypto promoters were able to hijack old Donald Trump tweets in order to stick their meme coin links where you could purchase their tokens. So you were able to see, Donald Trump's tweets with a call to action to buy a meme coin that he had no association with. So you can check that out at disruptionist.com.
All right, check that out. Brandon, what's happening on the discourse?
Well, first of all, I want to say it's important that you distinguish the meme coins that he has nothing to do with versus the meme coins that he has something to do with.
Right. Well, right.
If you're
going to invest in a scam, you should know who's scamming you, and this one is not Donald Trump.
Right.
I like a little mystery in my scams. I like the whole, that's maybe me. I think it's a little sexier. But yeah, on the discourse, I hope you all are watching the streams. Honestly, I'm not the one saying this, but a lot of people are saying this, that if you're not there, you're square. And I would never make aspersions as to people's shape, but it might be true. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys heard of that UFC fighter, Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah.
He's the one who was like praising Hitler on his new podcast, Arc Insanity. But we watched a little bit of that. Not only that, though, he was also on the Patrick Bet David podcast, because he is just a conspiracy theorist, generally speaking. So Patrick Bet David interviewed him about the shape of the earth and his beliefs and how it's flat. So we watched a little bit of that. It was very funny. And then we also touched on Trump's tariffs and his assault on the Department of Education. Speaking of like making America a scam nation, making America stupider is a really good way to make sure that people are more susceptible to scams. But yeah, it was a great time. If you're curious about the shape of the earth, I would always suggest coming to me as opposed to going to UFC fighters or Patrick Bet David. But yeah.
You know what I just figured out what we need that a lot of these guys, it'd be useful for the earth, is if we had a giant set of calipers that we could use to measure the earth. And then all of these people, we could combine the race science with the flat eartherism and finally solve some mysteries.
Well, I mean, Bryce Mitchell's skull is definitely flat based on that, based on that interview. And the time he got punched in the face by Josh Emmett. But yeah,
sorry, we're having issues with the phone lines. We're fixing it, but just wanted to let you know that's what I'm working on right now.
That's what the sound is, guys.
Yeah, sorry guys, we're figuring it out right now. People saying there's no phone, people can't hear. How about now? Anyone on the IMs? Hopefully we fixed it. Let us know if you can or can't hear us, please.
Brandon, was the maybe I misheard, but when was the interview that Bet Davis did with that UFC guy? Was it before or after his Hitler comments?
Before the Hitler comments. He's done a ton of interviews. I honestly think that like he's just I guess I would have to assume Joe Rogan adjacent podcast guest. He has a lot of crazy beliefs. So he does the circuit.
Right.
And
I just thought it'd be funny if I just thought it'd be funny if like that UFC fighter was all over the news because of his comments on Hitler. And then Bet Davis invites him on the show and is like, so let's address the elephant in the room. Your membership in the Flat Earth Society. Can you please discuss?
I don't see how you could believe in Hitler in the earth being flat, because everyone knows that Hitler lives in the hollow at the center of the earth with King Kong.
That's true.
I've been working on fixing these phones, and I just tuned back in and heard that Hitler's apparently living in the core of the earth. I wish I had the context for this conversation, but
Right. Well,
I think it's self-explanatory.
yeah,
right.
okay.
Brandon and
enough.
I are just breaking news, and you missed it. We did the research. We did the.
But Patrick Bet David did nothing to kind of debate him about the shape of the earth. Not that I think you should, but his one point of contention in the beginning was that like children prefer to play with balls, and so the earth must be a globe, was what Patrick Bet David said. And I was like, wait, what?
Still seemingly some issues with people trying to hear on the phone line. So just, but I don't know. It's some people say can hear you guys fine. Everyone sounds good. Other people say they can't hear anymore. So I'm not sure. Maybe we can ask Kyle what's going on there. Sorry about that, folks. Maybe we'll just take a call really quickly to see if it's working. Calling from a 501 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 501? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, 501? Hello, hello? 501?
Seems
Phone
like we have an
systems.
answer to that question.
All right, phone system's not working. I'm sorry, guys. I can't, in good conscience, tell people to hang on right now because we're having some technical difficulties. Apologies. I'm turning on the voicemail. So, all right, let's just, I've been wanting to do this for a few days, so I want to get it out of the way right now. So this YouTuber, Blonde Politics, did this like awesome video essay in the week after the election about Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all of these dark mega, basically tech billionaires and their obsession with Curtis Yarvin and what their vision is. And I want to play an excerpt of it, maybe 5 minutes, but people should really go over to her page to check out this full video essay. I was reading the comments and people were like, they thought you were a conspiracy theorist right after the election, and now this is exactly what's happening. She goes step by step into, you know, J.D. Vance's role and his connection with these folks. But I just thought this was so well done because this is exactly, you can see, the Yarvin and his ideology currently being implemented within the first few weeks of the Trump administration.
Are being funneled into these projects as we speak. This is the website for Praxis, a network state funded by Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Balaji, and Sam Altman. Through their shared capital fund, Pronomus, which is dedicated to funding the creation of network cities. The website for Praxis says, as local communities dissolve and nation states stumble, network states will ascend. The next global superpower will be a network state. The next America will be on-chain. The stated goal of Praxis is to build a corporate government with a global footprint. It will have territories all over the world. Crypto will be its currency. The modern global system, once the greatest power in the history of man, has become a brittle, jerry-rigged contraption incapable of carrying out the most basic functions. As these governing institutions continue to degrade, people will come to realize that no one is truly on their side. As nation-states falter, network states become inevitable. I should mention that Pronomus Capital is funding the creation of other network states, many of which are further along than Praxis. Some examples are Prospera in Honduras, Afropolitan, Etana, and small farm cities in Africa, Metropolis in Palau, and I think Young Drunk City is planned for South Asia. On Pronomus' website, they claim, decades of research on economic development has shown that the primary determinant of prosperity is the quality of a country's laws and the integrity of its courts, administrators, and other legal institutions. When institutions are outmoded, corrupted, or failing, the result is untold human suffering. Yet upgrading national institutions is notoriously difficult. Our solution? Build the cities of tomorrow. Right now, they are creating cloud communities, virtual nations. Once they have access to land, they will get their citizens to migrate to that city. Have a look at the pledge that you sign when you join Praxis, which you can join right now, by the way. Pronomus isn't actually Peter Thiel's first flirtation with exiting democracy either. In 2009, he funded the Seasteading Institute.
I want to say some things on why I think seasteading is not just possible or desirable, but why it is actually necessary.
The Seasteading Institute envisioned building these floating cities in the ocean outside of government's jurisdiction where billionaires could live and create as they saw fit. This idea kind of ran out of steam because nobody wants to live at sea, especially not billionaires, which means they need land. But how do we get from a nation state to a network state?
And this is actually related to a fundamental concept in political science, the concept of voice versus exit. If a company or a country is in decline, you can try voice or you can try exit. Voice is basically changing the system from within, whereas exit is leaving to create a new system, a new startup, or to join a competitor sometimes.
There's another way that Balaji also talks about how this could possibly happen. He calls it tech Zionism.
Right. What I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism, a movement supported by a global network to take back territory in the city, floor by floor, street by street, block by block, policeman by policeman. You have a foothold of private property, and you have a group membership of Great Tribe membership and private property. You also issue T-shirts. The tribal lens is like a virtual reality filter. Every single thing can be tagged as gray or blue in the city. I mean, like literally. So gray is the future, red is the past, blue is the present. So blue stands against both the past and the future. They're against both the self-driving cars, and they don't want to go back to the 50s. They prefer OnlyFans, Me Too, BLM, Ukraine. The hard part is to take control of the streets. How can you fence off a street and make clear that it's under great control? Take total control of your neighborhood, push out all blues, tell them they're as unwelcome as just as blues ethnically cleanse me out of San Francisco. Like, push out all blues, who has lost some territory in the cloud. They still control the land. Once gray starts taking back control of the land, that they're really going to howl. As they start losing, they're going to whistle for backup from California and eventually DC. Okay, they're going to try to get executive orders or things like that, which means you're going to need to have sympathizers at the level of California and DC who will side with you enough to block those actions, number one. And or number two, you actually get to the level of a sanctuary city and you say, I dare you.
Keep in mind, actions like this are already being attempted.
That's a good excerpt, I think, to give people a sense of what this vision is. And I watched that yesterday. Very chilling. People should check out the full video because it's around a half hour long and she goes into more detail. But can we pull up this other article from Gil Duran? This also goes into it a little bit. How all of these guys are obsessed with Curtis Yarvin, and you could hear, we'll get into some of the buzzwords that they talk about. The other day, Crystal Ball sent this to me, and I just thought, I think people should check it out. I think Crystal, Kyle, and friends are having this author on their show. But Yarvin previously had something where he dubbed it back in 2012. This is the second paragraph. Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel's House philosopher, called for something he dubbed rage. Retire all government employees. The idea, take over the United States government and gut the federal bureaucracy, then replace civil servants with political loyalists who would answer to his CEO-type leader, Yarvin likened to a dictator. And as this author points out, Elon Musk's DOGE is just a rebranded version of rage. So that essayist really went into, did a great job of, I would say, laying out the insanity of their vision. I mean, all that talk about tech Zionism, we've been ethnically cleansed from blue cities. You can see how Yarvin's vision of being post-democracy, having a monarch, essentially, somebody who can just solve all these problems, and democracy is way too messy. We can just exit, or we can create our own reality here. How identical that has been to, I would say, Elon Musk's actions over the past few weeks, which is trying to get access to the treasury illegally so that he can take it apart for his own ends and build his own utopian, almost tech feudalist network state future. That is what he's trying to do. Implement Curtis Yarvin's vision of anti-democracy and using this kind of utopian justification for a ransacking of our government and of our institutions for a select few. And that involves mass surveillance. That involves a cutting into people's individual rights and suppression of dissent. And I think we're seeing all of that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would only add, I think, a lot of this is just the ultimate end point or end goal of neoliberals too, or at least like the modern neoliberal era, that this government should be run like a company. And when you sort of index in like the way Silicon Valley works and the trendy companies of the 2010s, like tech unicorn startups, that those companies were run like little mini dictatorships. Look at like Adam Newman at WeWork. They were run in such a way as, the CEO was treated like some kind of golden god because he had run up the valuation to $1 billion, usually with a false bill of sales that was entirely related to their own like charisma, a la Elon Musk, only to watch it like basically crumble to dust, but to be able to like leave on a golden parachute. And despite all of the companies that didn't work out that way, our society, at least for a while, still like held up that kind of like, tech billionaire CEO as like the good billionaire. They were like the justification for like our capitalist system because they provided all the googads and the gadgets and the apps that power your phone. But I think, and this is what we've heard them say, not just the influx of Chinese tech supremacy into the world, but also just the overwhelming sentiment that like all billionaires are bad, not just some billionaires, but including tech billionaires. They know they just have developed the same kind of victim complex, or they've had their victim complex ignited, the same complex that like it unites all conservatives. And this is just like a conservative ideological position that once democracy fails to once a democracy fails to reify their view of the way the world should be, they just want to get rid of it. Like democracy should only be to like vote people who agree with me into office. And once it no longer does that, then it should just appoint a Peter Thiel to be CEO.
Right.
Yeah, I played that Balaji Srinivasan thing about the grays and the blues and stuff when I talked with Olivier Jutel on Left Reckoning. The venture capitalists plan their exit. And when they talk about exit, that they're talking about it as the financial parasites that they are, which means we're going to exit this investment with all of this profit because we weren't actually here to create a good business. We were here for the money. And that's what they're there for. But I also want to say about Curtis Yarvin. Corey Pine in the October 9th had a piece in the Baffler, the Moldbug Variations, about Peter Thiel's relationship with Curtis Yarvin. And the truth is that they're actually not that much different, Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel should not be understood as a genius venture capitalist. He is a culture warrior, ready to bring that book up, Bradley, who struck it lucky in the markets and now gets a reputation because he got monopoly profits through PayPal of being some sort of lord of creation or innovation. But this is what he was doing with David O. Sachs, that name might be familiar, in the 90s. The diversity myth, multiculturalism, political intolerance on campus. Yarvin also is a person who got investment from Thiel. This is where this money comes from for them to play with. It's them looking to all this money for these sort of political purposes. These are politics guys first, culture warriors first, and venture capitalists sort of like geniuses is just like basically an accident of history because they were able to put down money like Pierre Omidyar, like Elon Musk, a lot of people, because it turns out it's not actually that genius. And maybe the people who could first move were at an advantage when the internet was coming out, that, we're going to have to move money through it. So they all get to put all this money towards their favorite pet projects, including their pet Curtis Yarvin, who is like their in-house, I guess, ideas guy.
Right.
Also,
they can outsource their kind of like intellectual heft onto him and basically say, oh, look at this thinker. He speaks like...
We're just business guys.
Yeah.
But there's this other guy who we just think has good ideas. No, you're the same freak.
And what disturbs me about Yarvin in particular is also the fact that he's been interviewed and he's talked about how we are ripe right now in our political environment that is filled with irony. He says it's in that video essay too, we've never been in a more ironic moment in history. And it makes the simple solutions that I'm proposing a lot more palatable, is what he essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. And what he's admitting there is that meaning has been entirely destroyed, and our information economy is entirely captured by capitalism and being manipulated by guys like Elon Musk, who purchased the top journalistic communications platform in the world, arguably, in Twitter, which is where that basically that was what that was for. Deprioritize outlets like the New York Times, who I have a ton of issues with. But this was an attack on real, am I frozen? On information, and I'll fix that in a second. But Brandon, go ahead. I know you want to jump in.
I was going to say Matt's point is, well taken. I think a lot of what they're rebelling against too, despite just having like conservative and neo-fascist tendencies, is that no one thinks they're geniuses anymore, really. Like the culture has shifted in such a way that people don't think billionaires, even tech billionaires, are geniuses. There have been too many scams. There have been too many failures. There's been too many Elizabeth Holmeses and FBSs and like Adam Newmans. There have been too many documentaries. Deep Seeks. There's been too many things that have disabused people of that notion that every tech billionaire you see is actually like, Steve Wozniak or Steve Jobs or any of the Steves, right? Or Bill Gates even, right? So, not to mention a lot of them, Bill Gates has connections with Epstein and stuff like that. There's just been a mass disillusionment as it comes not just to wealth, but also the wealth derived from the tech industry, which used to just be something people fetishized a lot more. But I will say, despite all of that, and also detect Zionism, that was not what I would have called it, obviously. I absolutely support them building a country somewhere where people like Peter Thiel and JD Vance and all of the tech sycophants live. It would
the problem with that, though,
they don't displace anybody. They don't displace anybody.
But the problem with that is those examples of overseas, like connected cities or whatever they were called. That's just like where they can do it now. Like their real goal is obviously is like the country they want to build is right here. Like this is what they want.
Yeah,
and they want to just take it over. And
because they can't actually build a utopia without this. They can only, like the parasites they are, strap onto actual innovation.
And infrastructure.
And I just want to point out too that like this is like I know Brandon said that like the mask is off for a lot of these people in terms of like what they actually contribute and how people, the average person feels about them, which I'm not so sure it's that positive, that going in that positive direction quite yet. But in the tech world, this is pervasive, that they are so important and so good. Like pull up this tweet on the screen if you can. I just posted it in the chat from one John Shedletsky. And I want you to read the tweet before I tell you who John Shedletsky is.
Sure.
So just bring it up. Like this is a worldview where they think they are above you, me, and everyone. So here's John Shedletsky. This was in response to one of the DOGE boys, his friends, like defending him for he's a smart guy. I put my full trust in him rifling through your personal data that's held by the federal government.
Let me guess, founder and bio.
Wait for it. John Shedletsky says, Silicon Valley built the modern world. Why shouldn't we run it? Now, can you click on his profile so you can see what John Shedletsky did to build the modern world?
I'm excited. Workplace management app.
Go down. Even better than that. Keep going. Go down. Go down. Go down.
Which one?
Zoom
his bio
zoom
or
in
the...
right there. That first one right there in the bio.
Oh, Roblox.
First employee at Roblox. That's the modern world he built. The first employee at Roblox is this guy's claim to fame. I looked him up. That's the entirety of that's what he's known for. That's his career. Building Roblox, the video game that's known for being an attraction for pedophiles to go to because it is the easiest way for them to have access to kids. There are numerous reports from various organizations about how Roblox is a pedophile and grooming haven. And Roblox is built in such a way where they can't stop it. That's the modern world that these guys have so proudly built, and that's what they want to take over with. That contribution to society.
Right. And I mean, that isn't that a libertarian vision anyway, right? They're always concerned about age of consent.
It goes what I was saying, though. It's like Silicon Valley didn't build the modern world. It didn't even build the internet. If anything, it made the internet worse. It created like an enclosed internet, like an internet where like everyone is siloed into various different social media platforms, where like there used to be an internet, like, I mean, people under 20 probably don't remember it. The internet used to be a fun place where you could go to websites and like play games, like little flash games, like newgrounds.com, although, you know, I'd have its own problems too. Now the internet is a series of like social media platforms that are running like psychological experiments on you to give you depression so you shop more. And like then that's the Silicon Valley model for the internet and for the world is just like the Silicon Valley model for the world is just an expansion of that belief that there should just be little techno fiefdoms where like Microsoft rules and, you know, Facebook rules and Twitter rules and, you know, Instagram, I guess is the famous thing as Facebook or whatever, has like their own little like area that they are like, you know, able to lord over like they are online. But the internet certainly hasn't gotten better by nature of like Silicon Valley's influence on it. It's gotten a lot worse. It's just, you know, a lot easier to earn money on it, I suppose, but that's not necessarily for the best.
Right.
I mean, look what the Silicon Valley model has done to like society in general, even beyond just like our like experience online. Look at what Uber has done to people who were, you know, had jobs with a union and things like that. And look what Airbnb has done with commodifying even further, like turning any sort of property into a hotel space without any of the protections you get from a hotel. The same with Uber. You lose all those workers have zero protection, zero rights.
That's their innovation.
Economy now. That's the Silicon Valley world because they didn't create taxis. They didn't create rentals. They didn't create hotels. They created the model that further commoditized it and took away any sort of consumer protections that were had and any sort of worker protections for the people working in these industries had.
Yep.
And they basically hit it all by saying, we're an app company. We're an app company.
Yeah, I mean that it is. That's a great point. And like, there's other parts of this piece that I encourage people to read. But you know, Yarvin talks about how Trump should amass an army of people that are, quote, ideologically trained and Trump loyal, quote, ninjas that will be unleashed on the federal bureaucracy. And that, I guess, is really my closing point on this, which is that Project 2025 and this techno feudalist, anarcho-capitalist vision where I guess, you know, cryptocurrency rules the day as well, should not be spoken about as distinct from the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and the Republican apparatus. They are now merged into one. And their agendas have merged into one, which is the dismantling of the administrative state, of worker protections, of the functioning of our government, of programs like Medicaid that give health care to 71 million people who are at a lower income threshold or who have disabilities. They want to make like it's like you know, it's like Game of Thrones to them. and everybody else, it's just, you know, the humanity of the people that the government would rule over. That's kind of not their concern.
I never got super deep into Game of Thrones, but I imagine there's a lot of people who get sort of on the outs of the core tiers and have to eat a little shit, or at least pretend like they haven't been completely decimated. And it's interesting to me that, yeah, this entire anti-war, Trump hates war sort of contingent, and then Trump is pushing in Bibi Netanyahu's chair as he floats, taking over Gaza for Bibi. Also, on the domestic populism front, there's this sort of Bannonite, we're the pro-worker party now, because frankly, the Democrats have abandoned that to their shame. But Steve Bannon has to contend with the fact that it's not him calling the shots, it is literally foreign tech billionaires, including Elon Musk. And here's Doubt That talking to him, and it's just interesting to get his sort of spin on it.
Underestimate just how weird the long-term ambitions of a lot of people deeply involved in Silicon Valley are, especially around artificial intelligence, and that there is this sort of. No, wait. Let me. No, wait.
Balaj and the network state.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. They're not weird.
Well,
they're radicals. They're radicals.
That's a yeah, the network state we can save for the next time I have you on. For now, let's just focus on.
I'm going to be invited. I'm going to be invited. Hold it. We got breaking news. Bannon's actually going to be invited back.
We're gonna every week, man.
No,
so listen. So the transhumanism stuff, though. So to me, it seemed like one of the things that pulled Elon Musk into the conservative coalition was that while he's certainly not a religious conservative, but he is a kind of weirdo humanist, right? He likes the human race. He wants the human race to continue.
Oh, no, stop.
No, okay.
Stop,
so you don't see. To me, it seems like Musk is in one group.
Musk is
just as transhumanist as the rest of them.
No, since Edison, maybe our greatest applied engineer.
Okay.
Agreed.
See, positive.
Isn't it dig that he said? Isn't it dig that he said Edison and not Tesla?
That's an interesting point because he's also because
Tesla fans think Edison is and I think it's correct, like
applied engineer,
not necessarily the smarter of the two, and then was a lot of stolen valor. Sorry, Matt. Go on.
Well, I mean, Edison, was more applicable. Tesla's sort of like exciting thing, but it's interesting here. I just find it fascinating that Bannon there's a lot of boisterosity that impresses people about it because he'll call GOP pussies and then he'll go off against Balaji Srinivasan and then this complete capitulation. I mean, we can let him go. Maybe not a complete capitulation, but he does need to glaze Elon a little bit with this BS about all these guys. Let's just play it a little bit further, see how he comes back from that.
As transhumanist as the rest of them?
No, since Edison, maybe our greatest applied engineer.
Okay.
He is a genius in that level. Agreed. And so he looks at the thing as all kind of mathematical equations and from engineering in a big brain. When he puts on something, he can solve it. He is the most prominent of that crowd that's warned against artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence. It's one of the reasons he and the Altman at OpenAI have had so many big fights. Besides
not big fans of each other. Yep.
They hate each other. I mean, and part of that's personal, but part of it is philosophical. And Brother Musk is probably the farthest down the line because he's the most advanced in chipping. So I think Neuralink is one of the most aggressive about Homo sapien 1.0 or Homo sapien 2.0. Elon is at the tip of this, and Elon is actually on an applied engineering basis, not bullshit talk. He is probably the farthest advanced for transhumanism. People have to understand in the life, and I say life, next 10 years of your audience, we're going to be facing a dilemma for yourself and your kids. Do you enhance yourself? Do you enhance yourself either by genetic engineering? Do you
oh my God!
By advanced chip design plugged into you? Do you advance yourself by artificial intelligence?
Please, can you pause it? I'm sorry. Please, I encourage everyone in MAGA to try to advance themselves right now.
Hurry up.
By putting a chip in their brain.
Get the head start.
Can you please be the first? Please, men on the moon. The first man to, you can be the elevated human beings, the next level of our race. Be the astronauts of our time. Put the Neuralink chip in your brain. I encourage it. Bannon can start.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting. He's supposedly the sort of counter to all this stuff, and yet he can't help but sort of take his hat off to it because right now Elon's the daddy.
Yes.
And Bannon needs to flatter that guy, that weird freak who wants to put a techno chip into your head to process your thoughts. He has to defend him.
Or we could make humanity, we could choose a different route and maybe give everybody health care and free education and.
Yeah, I don't think we need all this money that venture capitalists have to play with all this shit. It's very clearly better directed by the state towards all the innovations that all these people have been skating off, like this internet, cell phone stuff. Who made GPS? You idiot!
Yeah.
Who invented all this stuff? It was Uncle Sam and other governments and their higher education sort of grants.
This is what I mean too. Like a lot of this stuff, like tech, Silicon Valley is just used to sell capitalism to you and deregulation to you, generally speaking. Yep. And as you're, deregulating society to facilitate, the techno future, you're, devaluing the public sector in ways that you don't even understand. Like, I can admit that Gattaca may be the future, but to not allow for the fact that some of the biggest advancements in the human lifespan, right, have been articulated or caused by like the public sector, whether it be vaccines or whether it be like, mass public health campaigns like anti-smoking in America.
Narcan.
These are things that these are things that the public sector did. And talking about like, brain chips and Elon's death cars is just a way for people to get sold a bill of sales about like our system that distracts them from the fact that like we're living shorter lives now, not because we don't have brain chips, not because we don't have, not because we don't have cars.
Because we have seed oil in our food or whatever.
Yeah. It's because, we allow corporations to pollute, our environment. We allow the army to pollute our environment. We don't provide universal health care to people. We don't provide a minimum standard of living to people. Those are the things that keep our society behind. Not that we're not giving enough money to billionaires, but, this is just the way for them.
Lib, it's the seed oil, Lib.
It's the seed oil.
Evan from
it's
Portland
the Red
said,
15 or whatever it's called that they put in the Kool-Aid.
That stuff is bad for you. the artificial coloring is bad for you. Yeah, that stuff is bad for you. But again, that's because America is deregulated. It's to allow companies to poison you for cheaper. And like that's what people instinctually understand that's what's going on in America. They just think that the solution is to have a good billionaire fight the bad billionaires because that's what's been sold to them by like neoliberalism.
Right. We need our Captain America. I mean, it's silly, but it's also just like, I think people are more susceptible to looking for simple solutions in a leader like Trump because our systems work so poorly and like there is no responsiveness.
The Marxist tradition has a long sort of theory about Bonapartism, which is when a leader comes through to cut through the contradictions of two hollowed out, decrepit parties. And it is something kind of interesting to me that the GOP has the House, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, and they're having Elon Musk take point on all this shit.
Mm-hmm. Hogtown. I let my 9-year-old son play Roblox once while I watched him, and a grown man tried talking to him within 45 minutes to get his name and address. No joke.
Wow.
So, to your point, Bender.
I read that study.
Free speech. That's the world they want to build.
You gotta get your kid on Dark Souls. That's a single player game. You won't have time.
Connected. What was the name of the city? Their network city, connected city. What is it called again?
Praxis.
Pronobos.
Praxis, whatever they were calling it. See, in Praxis,
or maybe Praxis is the vehicle to build it
or whatever. Yeah, but whatever.
They're just such nerds.
See, in their world, your child won't even need to get onto an online platform, be accosted by a creepy old man. They can be groomed in real time by anyone right off the streets who'll just go up to them and it'll be fine because that's the connected world that they want to build. That's their world.
No, like the groomer can send their like automated Tesla taxi to your house directly.
Right.
They can just they can like link their brain chip to your child's brain chip, and they can just like, you don't even need to tell me your name and address. No need for ASL. I'll just have my Tesla Cybercab, my Robovin come pick you up.
The unmarked, creepy, white, free candy van will in the future be a self-driving Cybertruck.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew from DC said, absolutely no one in the private sector innovated more than Bell Labs in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they were only able to do that because the government gave them a tightly controlled monopoly and in exchange forced them to make all their patents public.
That's right. And look, of course, there were certain things that Ma Bell got in, and maybe like people will point out like, oh, Ma Bell wasn't letting you do this with your phone line. They were cutting down on innovation. The truth is that we've not seen any sort of significant innovation, especially looking like at the 5G rollout, that sort of thing, by the privatization of all of this stuff and going away from, there's a lot of like, antitrust has a lot of fans these days. Lena Khan, of course, one of the stars of politics. There are certain things that don't need to be broken up for competition. There are certain things that are natural monopolies that should be under the provenance of the national government.
Yep.
We don't even have cool, like, Silicon Valley doesn't even make like cool toys anymore.
I know.
If you go
R&D
like,
is expensive. You need to be a monopoly to have the money to do it.
Like if you go to Japan or South Korea or like parts of Asia, they have like, Tamagotchis and cool gadgets. Everything Silicon Valley tries to make now is like, I hate to say like some kind of like scheme or scam. It's, you have like a handful of people who drop out of MIT and they make like a new app that they're just hoping to have bought out by Microsoft or Tesla or some company so that it can be buried and you'll never see it again. And they get like a cushy job or a cushy like payout package from Tesla or at Tesla. And that's just it. Like, so much of what Silicon Valley produces now are things you will either never see or like, get rich quick schemes or like intended just for like a quick buyout, like Juicero or something like that.
But also that world for them is changing too. Like you're absolutely 100% correct that was the modern day tech success scheme. You create some really stupid thing that goes viral really fast, doesn't even have to make any money. In fact, it could lose a ton of money, but just because you're bringing in an enormous amount of users from your free product, you all of a sudden have $1 billion valuation, and then you just sell it to one of the bigger tech companies and you sit back and relax. But that's all drying up now because so many of these companies have been bought out and then have ended up producing nothing. And it's just in terms of revenue at all down the road. So now you just have these same companies that are making money and they buy a company and they're like, wait, this isn't producing me any additional revenue. And then they're losing money. And now that's not the quick way to get rich anymore in Silicon Valley, which is probably why they're now turning their eyesight towards taking over things like the government.
Seth in Hollywood says, Emma, please keep pushing on, or I would think you mean pulling on that thread about the number of Palestinians Trump threw out the other day. It's not about believing him. It's that the 1.7 to 1.8 million is such a narrow and specific range. Trump doesn't pull a number like 1.7 out of his ass. Yeah, that's my hypothesis at this current moment is that, Trump is just such a dummy and so undisciplined that he may have accidentally let slip the intelligence that they have about how many Palestinians have been slaughtered, because the deficit between the 2.3 million that were previously cited and the 1.7 to 1.8 million that he cites, at least 500,000, I can believe it. We know that it is north of 180,000, according, I guess that was to the UN. And then in October, there was a group of 99 American doctors, nurses, medical workers that wrote to the White House and said that they could confirm that it was at least 118,000. And again, that was in October. So like this figure that is continuously cited by the mainstream press right now is around 48,000. And it's such a wild undercount that it's essentially insulting. And I mean, more than insulting. It's horrific. They've killed all of the record keepers and they've destroyed every piece of infrastructure. So there's no way to know if this, finger is connected to the family member that has been incinerated or just blown apart by Israel's massive bombs. And yeah, this is. I was
gonna say honestly, the fact that they stick with that number completely, to me, proves their bullshit from earlier when this all, first this most recent attack from Israel, in Gaza on the Palestinians began, because at first they refused to cite any numbers that came from the Hamas-led medical institutions there. Right. And the reason they're still sticking with that number is because that's the only number that the Hamas-led institution has been able to provide, because they don't have the resources to actually continue any sort of count. But that's the number they're still going by.
Exactly. And Trump, as I covered in our conversation with Zachary Foster, endorsed the ethnic cleansing of Gaza right next to to Netanyahu as he grinned, essentially saying, why would they want to go back there? And he said that the United States should take over Gaza. That's what he said. Now, this could just be him not understanding that he means our proxies, the Israelis, will go and reoccupy Gaza like they had previously in history, or he's actually in favor of it either way. This was such an exciting development for the Hitler of our time that he went on Fox News to talk about it. His grand plans for extermination are well underway.
He talked about that America would go in, dismantle the dangerous unexploded bombs, level the site, rid the site of destroyed buildings, and create an economic development that would simply supply unlimited jobs, housing for people in the area, and really make it a place worth living in. Is that anything you expected, and do you share that belief? And what do you make of American media taking that he's taking over Gaza? He sounds like he's rebuilding Gaza to me.
Yeah, well, I don't think he talked about sending U.S. troops to complete the job of destroying Hamas. That's our commitment. That's our job, and we're absolutely committed to it. And I also don't think he said that he's going to fund it. He said that neighboring states, wealthy states, would do it. But the actual idea of allowing first Gazans who want to leave, I mean, what's wrong with that? They can leave, they can then come back, they can relocate and come back, but you have to rebuild Gaza. If you want to rebuild Gaza, you can't have, this is the first good idea that I've heard. It's a remarkable idea, and I think it should be really pursued, examined, pursued, and done, because I think it will create a different future for everyone.
You know, they can come back, a different future for everyone. They can come back, but they can be to do labor for us.
Yeah, just like they could come back after they spend a little bit of time in Gaza after being expelled in 1948.
They can come back. They can come back and they can be our servants. Just like a handful. The rest of them, they die.
Good behaved ones can serve drinks.
As the way he talks about Gaza, as there's footage of the destruction in the passive voice. I mean, it's destroyed. We have to take them out. We have to take them out. So I shouldn't go down that road. We have to take them out so that we can rebuild it and we can make it into a Trump casino and we can have Jared Kushner. When he says taxpayer money isn't going towards it, do you know what he means? He means capitalist real estate developer money is going to go towards it. And so, hey, Tel Aviv, you can go to a nightclub there, and maybe a few miles away there are people getting slaughtered in an open-air concentration camp. But now, new Gaza City, bunch of nightclubs,
Mediterranean.
You can have some Israeli food there.
I also like how they're presenting this like it's like a new idea. Like, oh, maybe we should try ethnically cleansing the area. We haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, I know. Right. And we haven't heard, they can come back. They can come back. Yeah, sure they can.
They've been trying to temporarily relocate them to Jordan and Egypt since they started massacring them. But those countries are right to not want to just allow for like mass displacement of the Palestinian people, because they know that they will not be allowed to go back, which is exactly what they're trying to prevent from happening. They're trying to prevent from, this genocide to be completed. Right. Like, ultimately, I think that's what, Trump, I imagine, wants the conflict to be over. But like in his mind, ending it can just mean that like the genocide is complete.
Right.
I love how all of a sudden he sounds so for a free moving Palestinian people. They're not allowed to leave or enter Gaza without permission from Israel or Egypt. And all of a sudden now, Netanyahu is about, they can go wherever they'd like, leave, come back, enjoy yourself. What?
Right.
Like, that's the first time I've ever heard that. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Yeah, and Zach in our interview was talking and reminding me that if you leave Gaza for more than 3 years, you're literally not allowed to come back. They revoke your status and your ability to live there because Israel controls Gaza, because it's a part of Greater Israel. It is a part of the Israeli state, except that they just concentrate the Palestinians there and slaughter them. And then the West Bank is a ghetto that is solely being encroached upon and land is being stolen from. And that is also the next frontier here. And the other part of Greater Israel that is the big prize.
Yeah, the right to they can return stuff is just a mockery of things that I saw so many commentators accept as just, we can't do a right of return for all the refugees displaced in 48 or 73. They're just going to have to live with that because Israel's security concerns are more imperative than international law. Why people are anti-Zionists and think that the whole thing of like Israel has a right to exist. If Israel means the maintenance and construction using brutal methods of a Jewish demographic majority, then it does not have the right to exist. That is an ethnic sort of like just a clear powder keg for what we've seen for 75 years. You cannot do it. You can, or you cannot do it without genocide and ethnic cleansing. And so all this stuff, when we talk about like a one democratic state, Israel's finally going to do us the favor of specifying where exactly its borders are. And guess what? They're going to try to include Gaza, the West Bank, already include the Golan Heights. The problem is all of the people that live there that they don't want to give the vote to. So it is an apartheid state. And again, we're going to go through this next phase of, well, but doesn't Israel have the right to exist? Not like this, no.
As a one democratic state with Palestinians having full rights.
Which means that they might outnumber Jews there.
Right.
And guess what? That's just something that, like,
you have to deal with as a settler colonial state. Sorry, you want to live in an area where is majority Arab, majority Muslim. You don't get to be the demographic majority. Sorry.
And any Israelis that have a problem with that, leave.
And someone just pointed, I did not know, I did not see this. Ski by BB says, did you see that Netanyahu gifted Trump a golden pager? Effing gross. I did not see it, but I just found it here. Here it is. The New York Post published it. He plated a pager in gold. Can we put this up? What says, press with both hands. And then President Donald J. Trump, our greatest friend and greatest ally. And he did it in his favorite color, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a reference to the jerry-rigged pagers that has, I mean, they...
Wait, is he trying to take out Trump now too?
Yeah,
I mean, why would you
right. I mean, is this an inside job? That's too much wishful thinking. I think
Trump reportedly Trump did say that if Iran takes me out or something, I want war with Iran.
He said I left instructions. Yeah. Like it's like the Book of Henry.
If you are someone who wants war with Iran, I can't think of a better way than to make that happen than to make it look like Iran took out Donald Trump, honestly. I mean, what are you...
They were trying to blame Iran.
The pager is the beginning of that.
They were trying to blame Iran with the assassination attempts in Pennsylvania, and it was just like a lone wolf white kid.
I mean, there is like an insane right-wing like Zionist group going around to pro-Palestine activists and handing them pagers right now. Like that's a thing they're doing.
Right?
Yeah.
The Betar.
Yeah.
That is the exact same youth movement, BETAR. That is the exact same youth movement that Einstein said was the Hitler youth of our people.
Wow. Yes, you're right. Says a lot. By the way, those pager attacks killed children.
And Zionists love it. If you could ask them behind closed doors.
Oh, they use it nonstop to even just like harass people. Like I just used that example, but they don't need to physically be there. You see them just say it online. Oh, should we give you a pager? Do you need a pager? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, Israel likes to kill kids because that's one less person on their apartheid ledger once they take all the land over.
Jobby Boonier says, let's be clear, Israel sucks, but they could do the funniest thing in history with that pager. Al Sonic from Pittsburgh. I bet that would for the pager is cedar. It's a tree of Lebanon. I was wondering what the damn tree was. They are so racist and vile.
They're Nazis.
Yeah.
You did
really feeling themselves right now.
You go for a Jerry Seinfeld impression there. They're so racist and vile.
I don't know. I'm just trying to change the tone
I wish
of my
he said
voice.
that, but we know he thinks the opposite.
If I'm musical with it, then I, won't say what I really want to happen. Don't want to get in trouble. Okay, my brain hurts. CNN reports that Trump targets NWS employees, National Weather Services, like early warnings and stuff we need. Well, I mean,
that's because focusing on the weather makes people think climate change is real.
And you could just nuke the hurricane, like you suggested that one time. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Bay Area Dave. Living in the San Francisco Bay Area, I have come to see Silicon Valley tech innovation follows a 3-step process. 1, break things by any means necessary. 2, profit. And 3, leave the mess for someone else to clean up. Yes. Roz from Ojai. Republicans are all for transhumanism until it comes to vaccines and body-altering surgeries. Yeah. Detective Du Bois. The same people who support RFK Jr. will contradictorily eat all this transhumanism shit up.
I mean, a lot of those people, they're sharing like a RFK thing about some, quack remedy he has for
methylene blue.
From radiation when he flies. And it's so funny because guess what? That is a product of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yep. But it's just none of it has consistency.
It was originally an industrial dye that just became like utilized by quacks and people who are into things like nootropics because it's bioactive. So it's just one of those things that people who are steeped into doing everything but taking vaccines will do to themselves to protect their own doctors.
It's so funny to me though. It's like same with the hydroxychloroquine, where people are taking it like a monthly dose of something because they don't want pharma to take over their life. Like, you are constantly looking for something you can pay like a subscription service to, and you think you're getting out of the control of pharma over your life.
I like to think that people, in America just feel a lot of times, this is not a statement on their morals, like out of control. And it feels good to be able to pretend to be your own doctor. It feels good to be able to pretend that you have, that you can have a meaningful impact on your own health without having to, resort to using the healthcare system because we're alienated from it. So I think that a lot of people, and you see it across all facets of life, not just medicine, but if people had more community, they wouldn't feel that way. Exactly. Their doctor would be their friend.
I can just consume my way intelligently out of this mess.
Yep. NYC transit worker. Hey, folks, new member here. Since you won't read my emails or messages about subway air quality, can I at least get an I'm staying in the race to keep me motivated? I mean, you're being very passive aggressive about it, but I'm sorry. We are so overwhelmed right now. We're trying our best. We'll get to your email, but here you go. Matt's finding it.
Oh,
come on, bud.
I'm staying in the race.
Bunk. Detective Du Bois, did this person say he was ethnically cleansed from San Francisco? Comic Tree says, ethnically cleansed from San Francisco. This man is claiming he's ethnically conservative. Yep. They're just the more they can degrade meaning, the more it works for them.
Well, did you see the other day that Proud Boy Joe Biggs, who was a January 6th guy, posted a screenshot of how he was searching to rent a home on Zillow, and he reached out to someone, and they got back to him with, "Are you insurrectionist Joe Biggs?" And he screenshotted it and complained to Zillow publicly, and his followers, his MAGA right-wing followers, were going, "This is housing discrimination, sue, sue, sue." No, in fact, it's not housing discrimination to say you don't want to rent to someone who has a history of defacing property. How can you trust them in your home? These are guys who would, I'm sure a lot of them are landlords too. If a felon was to apply for housing at their home, they would immediately say, absolutely not. I'm not even looking at the application. But one of their guys, oh, this is housing discrimination.
Exactly.
It's in fact not housing discrimination to not want someone who has previously destroyed property to not live on your property. That's actually not housing discrimination.
I would just also quickly add, what makes the ethnically cleansed from San Francisco thing more disgusting than the fact that it's, referencing probably a genocide that's going on is that, not just San Francisco, but large portions of California are forcing people out. They are forcing homeless people out of their cities, pushing them further to the margins. Not that homeless people are an ethnicity, but a subpopulation of people, they're pushing them to their margins at this moment. And what he's describing is nowhere near as violent as that. He just means that people don't think he's a genius anymore. People just don't when he's at the coffee shop, they don't go, "Oh my God, are you the CEO of Google?" They just go ew, it's that guy. You know,
Yeah.
like, that's what he means by like he's being ethnically cleansed. He's not being worshipped.
Right. DSA Aaron in Atlanta, Giannis Varoufakis was right. We are in the techno-feudalism era. Phineas Erb, I'll say it, Peter Thiel and his compatriots want to legitimize Epstein Island. Yeah, pretty much. Mott and the Baileys.
Peter Thiel, weird deaths kind of in his vicinity. It might be worth Googling for folks. People falling off, like, I feel like.
Big buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mott and the Bailey says these men are tech feudalists who want to be lords of their own little manors, where they get to own people as property and as a reward for loyalty to the king. They aren't even hiding their neo-monarchism. Kash Patel literally has an AI-generated kids book about King Donald. I have it right next to me. It's my favorite. It's my favorite book. The Plot Against the King. There he is.
Oh yeah.
By Kash Patel. He makes himself, you'd be shocked to know, one of the main characters and as close to Trump as possible.
Wow.
I like the sequel that he writes with Dinesh D'Souza. That's called Rise of the King 2000 Mules. Before the fact that 2000 Mules, Dinesh D'Souza had to release an apology about 2000 Mules not being accurate.
Right.
This is probably not worth saying, but you know how some people have a 1,000-yard stare? Kash Patel has a 2-centimeter stare.
Yeah. Okay. Also, really lacking in the neck department. I mean, that is just head on shoulder blades.
What's longer, the neck or the focal point?
All right. While we're having fun, Jesse Lee Peterson made an appearance once again. I mean,
I saw this.
This is like not even that. I mean, we just have to have some fun. And I watched this probably 4 or 5 times last night. I was laughing so hard. So Adam Friedland had Jesse Lee Peterson on, who I guess is just like no longer.
Sorry, just to clarify, Adam went on Jesse's show.
Oh,
yeah. So,
he did.
Yeah. So
okay.
Jesse in the beginning, Adam in the beginning of the episode, he literally is like, "Who booked me for this?" He literally is like, "Why did you invite me?"
That's actually an interesting question, because there's a while, like 3 or 4 years ago, where everyone except me was getting invited to go on Jesse Lee Peterson. Like Griscom got invited.
Didn't Michael?
Michael got invited, decided not to do it, but a whole bunch of people did do it.
Right. But he was just like such a fun, very dumb right winger to make fun of. He had the whole beta and alpha fixation. Beta. People may remember that from that sound drop. But I guess so Adam Friedland went on his show and they were talking about what's okay to say in terms of humor and jokes about Jewish people and jokes about other races. And it was just a thing of beauty how Adam manipulated him into just saying what he says.
This is so embarrassing. This whole thing has been embarrassing, but I feel like I really like you as a guy.
Let me ask.
Yeah.
Ask.
Go ahead.
If I'm at your show and you're making jokes about the Jews, right? And
myself, kind of, yeah.
Right, and you're making jokes about the Jews, and I'm cracking up. Should I be laughing or not?
It's interesting. I've had that question. It's like, did people in the Midwest watch Woody Allen movies? Because those movies got like wide distribution, right? But it's like, who the hell wants to see that crap? I get it. I'm like, that stuff makes so much sense to me, but it's like, it's so like, I can't imagine that it would appeal to other people.
Should I be laughing if you're making Jewish jokes?
Jewish, like what sense? Like Jewish people
at
or
one
what?
At one of your shows, and you're up making jokes, and they're really funny.
I'm mainly making fun of myself.
Let's say that all the Jews are laughing. They're cracking up. And I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, should I laugh or not?
It's a similar
So should I
question,
laugh?
right?
Should I laugh?
But I guess I don't do Jewish jokes.
I thought you said you did.
I do Jewish, like self-deprecation, right? So making fun of yourself is like a self-deprecation. It's like it's an aspect of comedy that, like, a lot of Jewish guys.
But let me ask, because of time, I got to keep moving here. If you're making Jewish jokes in an audience full of Jews,
what kind of Jewish joke? But I'm not. That's not what I said. I make fun of myself.
Oh,
right?
okay.
which is a Jew-y thing to do.
So if you
but
made
it's not
a
a
Jew-y joke,
I'm not like,
if you
I'm not
made
like,
a Jew-y joke, should I
control the
laugh at a
banks?
Jewish audience?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this: you have a
I
show
think it
called.
might-
You have a show called. You host
Did
a show.
I answer your question? Or are you moving on?
Wait,
Oh,
where's
go
the
ahead.
part?
You could have, Jesse. You could have pressed me on that. I was vulnerable. You had me on the ropes right there, and you moved on.
But I'm not trying to have you on a rope.
You know what you did? You turned the other cheek, much like this guy from Nazareth.
All right, this is too much context. Yeah, so I want to get to the part where this happens, but it's amazing. I mean, people should watch the whole thing, but keep going.
Is how revolting I look is funny. Absolutely laugh at me.
Well, how about if you say, I have a
What do you
Jewish...
mean? What is a Jewish joke? Can you explain what that is?
I don't know. You're the comedian.
You keep saying Jewish jokes. I just don't understand what you mean.
But I thought you said that you made Jewish jokes.
I said that I do self-deprecation.
Okay, I got you now. I'll have you now.
Okay,
But
I'll give you an example.
And give me a quick answer because of time. If
no, I don't want to stop talking to you. We got another hour, baby.
So let me ask: if you should make a Jewish joke, and I'm in the audience with a bunch of Jews, should I laugh?
Okay, help me out for a second. I'm not. Help me out for a second. Could you please tell me?
Here we go.
A Jewish joke so I can understand what you mean.
Jews love money.
Is that a joke? What are you talking about? That's a joke?
But should I laugh about that? If you made that joke, and I'm in
should
the
you
audience,
laugh about Jews love money?
What?
Tell me a Jewish joke. Listen, you're a free speech conservative. I'm not sensitive. I'm a comedian.
Right.
I believe in the First Amendment. So just tell me. You have to know one.
I just told you one. You didn't say it was funny.
Jews love money is not. It didn't have the structure of a joke. It didn't have a setup. It didn't have a punchline.
You're still laughing.
Jews have a big nose.
Jesse, you're funny. I believe in you. Okay.
Okay, that's it.
That's it. That's it.
I think he's less of a free speech conservative.
Oh my God.
Oh, sorry, Brian. What were you saying?
I was gonna say he's less of a free speech conservative and more of like a slurred speech conservative. Like, that's exactly how afraid I am of how like wet my mouth must sound on podcasts. Like it just sounded like he had just like a full mouth full of spit.
I love that he gave. So it's almost as if in a beautiful way, that interaction had the structure of the joke. The setup was the first anti-Semitic remark. Yes. And then the second anti-Semitic remark was the punchline. And the fact that none of them were jokes. They were just anti-Semitic remarks.
I love Adam.
He's brilliant.
Like being so patient there and saying like, okay, look, like I know you're ready. You're so prepared for someone to take offense or like let's actually walk through this step by step at a fundamental level. And he can't stop laughing at saying Jews love money.
I know.
I also he keeps bringing up that like in his mind, the only people who would go see like Adam Freeland is a bunch of Jews. He's just like stay out there with this Jewish audience.
A room full
And
of
the
Jews.
Jews are all laughing. Can I laugh? Like isn't that what he verbatim said?
Yeah. I wish he'd come back on the scene. Miss him.
I think he just thinks like stand-up comedy is just like a room full of Jewish people. Honestly, he just thinks it's a bunch of Jewish people in the audience.
It's like a synagogue in here. There's just
we love money. That's all he thinks they say too. They're on stage. We love money. Oh my God.
I think conservatives just don't understand what a joke is. Because like since forever, but definitely since like Obama became president, they've just described like the offensive statements that they make as like jokes. Like, you know, Jesse Waters has been doing a lot of that too recently, where it's just like, oh, I just said something really, really gross and offensive. It's like, I'm just joking. It's like,
but they don't understand art. Like that's part of why they can't interpret like The Wolf of Wall Street as satire and they think it's aspirational, or, you know, they look at, say, something like Goodfellas, or other mob movies like that are well made by Scorsese that are deconstructions of like toxic masculinity. They see them as aspirational and like wish fulfillment. And there's some of that too, right? But they only take the fantasy element of the violence that they can inflict and like out of it, right? And they make it into hero worship. Scarface, same thing. They leave out the parts where it ends badly for them. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even just what they don't understand. It's what they understand free speech humor to be. Like when Elon Musk took over Twitter and they all cheered that when he said comedy is legal again. What do they view as comedy? Jews have big nose.
Right.
Like that's what they like. That's
slurs.
You're just saying a slur, and not even funny
slurs. That's all
slurs.
it is for them. They actually, that to them, like to Jesse, whatever his name is, that was comedy that he was doing. Those were jokes because that's what they view as humor, just slurs.
Exactly.
Which is so true. And also to Emma's point, like they view art, like they view everything, you know, in society as a way to like garner and accumulate power. So when they watch stand-up comedy, they're looking at it as like, oh, this person's on stage and like making people listen to them. And it's so powerful. He has so much power. And art is about how much money you can accumulate. We saw with the NFTs too. Like art is about how much money you can accumulate via, you know, any kind of, you know, medium that can be created as considered creative. They don't think of art as like the act of creation or the act of like putting together like the structure of a joke. They just think of it as like another way in society to like become rich, famous, and have powerful and make people like listen to you.
Or to consume something. Yeah. I mean, and those same people are also enamored by something like ChatGPT, right? Where they don't place value in like what art is and how the labor of art is what we find like beautiful in terms of the result of it. So they think that like there's a shortcut to achieving that kind of expression, and it's all just slop.
It's the imperatives of investors just made to just transplant into people's head like a brain chip. Like all the art or all the like architecture that these sort of like take us back, return type of people online that support Elon, like all that, like, you know, from like 150 years ago, that stuff looks interesting because it wasn't made using like all the labor saving processes that have come around since then. It was like masons like building St. Paul's Cathedral by hand and that sort of thing. And then people wonder why we don't build anything like that anymore. It's because the developers are capitalists who are doing it as cheaply as possible. You goddamn idiots.
Right. All right, guys, gonna read some IMs and get out of here. Again, sorry about the issues with the phones. Not sure what's going on there, but hopefully I'm sure we'll have it fixed by tomorrow. BRB Forever said there's a Zionist group that approached Norman Finkelstein on the street and put a pager in his pocket.
That was Betar.
Were they also the skunk people, or was that just IDF?
That was just I think that was just an IDF related thing, as far as I know.
Chris Burdick, the sad thing is that even Jesse Lee Peterson's attempts at the jokes were better structured than the cock joke that Musk wanted to make on SNL.
That's true.
I don't remember what that was.
He pulls that. Yeah, stupid. I do have a book recommendation on this. While we're talking about Betar, this passage comes from a book, A Threat from Within, A Century of Jewish Opposition to Zionism by Yaakov Rabkin. Zionist youth mobilization. I'll start here. Albert Einstein was among the Jewish humanists who announced the Betar youth movement in 1935, describing it as being as much a danger to our youth as Hitlerism is to German youth. Reform Rabbi Stephen Wise expresses indignation at what he saw as a slogan to fit the times. Quote, this is from the movement, Germany for Hitler, Italy for Mussolini, Palestine, not Israel yet, Palestine for Jabotinsky. He considered Jabotinsky's philosophy to be militaristic, while, quote, the whole tradition of the Jewish people is against militarism. An article published in Prague in 1984 under the titled Brown Shirt Zionists accused Jabotinsky of direct links with the fascist dictatorship. And that's the shame that we have to, and the real problem we have to deal with is that one of the world's religions, and like religions can be, you see this with like Opus Dei and Christianity, has been taken over by a fascist movement. That's what Zionism is, Opus Dei, and there's all sorts of different histories in Catholicism. I'm sure other religions have had it too, but None is successful because it combined with the horror of the Holocaust and then all of these post-war imperial powers giving billions and billions to that strain of ideology. And, you know,
that's a great
we see
point.
The world that we've gotten.
I mean, on a smaller scale, the United States funding Muslim fundamentalists and as a way to combat the Soviet Union. And we also saw the detrimental effects. Like, that's what I hate about the Western chauvinist kind of fixation on women's rights in the Middle East, because it's just obscuring the very fact that these are the people that in many cases we elevated. What WTF Cody said, I literally yelled in laughter at him saying Jews have big nose. What in the world? He was really trying. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. I hear Jesse Lee Peterson really liked reflector vests and safety cones. Okay. I think I see what you're saying, but Desert Lefty, Benjamin Nosferatu sounds like he's from Wakalia. I made a joke that Barron Trump looked like Nosferatu on Twitter, and it's crazy how obsessed with him the MAGA fans are. They were very mad about that. And he's never said anything.
Nosferatu is a sex object, I thought.
Well, it's just that he's tall and awkward. That was the joke.
Okay.
It's really not that big of a deal. But
the things I see people say about Nosferatu is he's what women want.
Yeah, I mean,
he groomed that girl. Did they see the movie?
Yeah.
I saw so many tweets from being like, we have to. Can I say something about Nosferatu?
You're so ridiculous. I think maybe they've got to be joking. Well, that's a whole other thing. But the movie for like sexual advice for women, I would say, is the movie Baby Girl. That's the one that I think men should see. But great film. I can't believe she didn't get nominated for Best Actress. But another day we could talk about the Amelia Perez drama, because I know that Sam would never want to talk about it, but I find that story so fascinating. Does no one care about this like me?
I was reading her tweets today, and some of them are bangers, but
just like the most racist. It was just, the movie was accused of its racism and its portrayal of like a trans woman who prior to that was like a drug kingpin, and then transitions into a woman and it absolves her of everything. And the French director was saying, I don't need to understand Mexican culture to make a movie about it. It was accused of being racist at the beginning, and everyone had that feeling, as did I. And then it was just like this gift from the universe that this woman had the most racist tweets ever. It's funny. And it's an indictment of like what appears to be on its face a liberal story about trans, like a trans woman, but in fact is like so deeply offensive on so many different levels. And of course, the Hollywood establishment rewards it with like many awards.
This is actually a perfect time to announce that I'm launching a new project, because I'm looking for VC funding. So it's a new platform where, like, if you're hiring an actor or CEO or any like public facing individual, it will scan all of their social media posts for like racist, bigoted things, and it will delete them automatically. So you don't get caught up in stuff like this. The subscription is currently $100,000 a year, but I think it's worth it if you don't want to get Amelia Perez's did.
Yeah. All right. Well, free advertising here on the Majority Report for the new project.
Pronomos, reach out to me. I can have a whole district in your city. It could be like Cyberpunk 2077.
5 more. Old Chomsky. Did y'all see Russell Brand pivot to how, as a Christian, he can't help but reflect on the Old Testament and the special relationship Jewish people have with that land?
Oh my God.
What a clown he's turned into.
Russell Brand tweeted out like 3 months ago that he's like, can you believe all this confusing stuff in Leviticus? Leviticus is like the 4th book in the Old Testament. Like, if you should probably get to Leviticus before you get baptized by Bear Grylls.
Yeah. He and coincidentally, the BBC had an investigation that came out about him last week. So.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Basically apologizing for not taking complaints seriously or rising them up in the chain of command. And I can say, as somebody who listened to every single episode of the BBC, both 6 Music and Radio 2 Russell Brand shows, it does not take long. Pick a random episode and you will find him basically derailing an interview. And I thought this was funny when I was like an 18-year-old, but you cannot listen to an episode of that without him derailing any interview. And it's not just with women, it's any interview by turning it to sex. The guy has a clear problem. And also is pretty obvious that all the competition winners for their contests about from previous things that got selected happen to be women invited in studio.
Yeah.
And I think some of the accusations come from those folks.
Yep, I think that's actually true. I read that. Kowalski from Nebraska, the only 3 countries that could conceivably take Palestinian refugees is Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, all of whom have said absolutely not. The Jordanians are already on the verge of an internal revolt with the complicity that they have had with the genocide. The Saudis might be fine with the labor, but they're already dealing with a lot of internal strife. And no, these people aren't leaving. The Egyptians already have way too many people than the state can functionally take care of, and 3 active military conflicts occurring simultaneously, as well as needing to keep forces in their major urban areas to prevent food riots. Not to mention, if any country does take in refugees, they will be absolutely despised by the rest of the Arab community. This is an impossible plan. I guess you could relocate all the people of Gaza to Tel Aviv and move the people out of Tel Aviv. They could go and stay in hotels across Israel until the Gaza Strip is repaired, but I have a feeling they won't go for that plan.
A lot of those people still have houses that could just move into if they weren't under Israeli control.
Exactly.
You know, Trump probably would not understand what you just did there. And if you flaunt that idea to him, he might be like, that's a good idea, and say it out loud.
The Israelis would throw a fit.
No, right. And then they would
detonate his beeper.
7 in 10.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
7 in 10. There was a poll that was just done. 7 in 10 Israelis approve of Trump's plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Well, he had to win them back over after they blamed him for the ceasefire.
Yeah. I mean, how dare he? Hitchens goes, federal workers, remember the trauma is the point, stick together and understand it. Seattle Steve, for my fellow Seattle folks, make sure to turn in your ballots by next Tuesday, February 11th. 2 important levies to fund schools and a new tax for large corporations to fund social housing. All right, check that out. Tim Pools Plunger, does Jesse Waters think there is a Jewish Apollo Theater? And you mean Jesse Lee Peterson, but it does sound like that.
Jesse Lee Waters?
Yeah. Jewish Apollo Theater is like that is what he's envisioning. And the final I am of the day.
All right, now that is funny.
Yeah. Dark Soul, I'm going to sit my cis white ass down and listen to this French guy. Hollywood. Yeah, exactly right. The movie that was the best about well, actually, and it's a spoiler. Matt, I did watch the movie that we described that you accidentally spoiled for me, and that's a better, expression of a non-gender conforming experience than Amelia Perez. All right, guys. 6. Not the number. We're ending the show. Brandon, Matt, Bradley, thank you guys so much. We will see you tomorrow.